It's my greatest of pleasure to welcome you to the Italian Cultural Institute in London. I'm Katia Pizzi, I'm the director of the Institute, and I'm absolutely delighted because our collaboration with Il Circolo is something that makes us proud, and we consider Il Circolo as one of our sister cultural associations. So thank you, Simona Sperafico, its president, and all the members, because we're always very, very happy to work with you. Thank you all for braving this awful autumn afternoon. We seem to have plunged from summer into autumn, straight into autumn.
Hey, welcome everybody, and thank you. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you.
And you already, we already know about his biography in a way, but I would like to start from the beginning, David, if you don't mind.
No problem.
For musicians, sometimes music is a call that starts very, very early. And my first question would be, obviously, did you decide in your childhood, when you were a little boy, that you would become an orchestra conductor?
Well, it all started at school, singing in the choir. And I also sang in the local church. And then there were problems with the choir master, and at 14 I started conducting, rehearsing the choir, and it started then.
I don't believe it, at 14.
Yes, there's no one else, so I had to do it.
Okay, and then obviously you progressed in Manchester.
Yes, I went to, yes, that was the first part of my studies, was in Manchester. Then I wanted to develop further because I was also interested in improvisation. And the art of improvisation is still very active in France, and at the Paris Conservatoire it is still it is very important. So I studied improvisation and also conducting at the Paris Conservatoire.
So you attended the Conservatoire de Paris under the very, very famous Igor Markevich.
Yes, that came later. Paris Conservatoire is very good if you win the first prize, the premier prix, and then it opens many doors, which come by winning the first prize. All the competition examinations are public, many people come, and if you win, the career starts, which is very good.
And just to remind you, Igor Markevich just composed the music for the last Ballet Russe by Sergei Diaghilev, and probably this really had an impact on you.
It was very important because I was very fortunate in Paris to be able to take part in what they call the Classe de l'Esthétique, which was run by Marcel Beaufils, who was very much involved in Bayreuth and friends of the Wagner family, and used to write the program notes for the Bayreuth productions. So he was also very interested in the Diaghilev period. I became most interested, and I'm still working. I'm working on it today in cooperation with the Monegasque government.
So this was the push towards the ballet. So it was not only the improvisation or composition, but you...
It came because I had the opportunity of going to Monte Carlo to take a course in conducting with Igor Markevich. And of course, as he played the piano for Diaghilev, so did Prokofiev, so did Stravinsky, they played rehearsals. And then during this course, I was given a prize, and then Markevich invited 6 of us to join him at his home at Saint-Césaire and study with him. And obviously there were conversations about working with Diaghilev, working with les Ballets Russes, which was absolutely fascinating for me.
In general, you think that you had a special skill. Is there any special skill just to go towards the ballet instead of just conducting an opera?
Well, yes,
is
it's
it-
very different. I mean, I was working...
What is the difference?
Well, my first job was working as, you know, the bottom level, assistant conductor, répétiteur, so I was working with singers. I also financed my studies at the Paris Conservatoire, so I worked as a répétiteur for dance classes, so I was beginning to get involved, playing for class and playing for rehearsals, accompanying singing teachers. The famous singing teachers in Paris had an accompanist to accompany the singing lesson. Then, working in a company, I met a ballerina, and as singers don't work like dancers, so I'd finished work with the singers, they don't work like dancers. So then obviously I was waiting for her. Dancers work so hard. So would you play this? Would you play this variation? I've got to dance this tomorrow. I'm replacing somebody. Can we do this? And this was also outside the normal rehearsal time because the pianist had finished his service at 5 or 5:30 or whatever. So that was the beginning of dance. That was beginning to get involved very much with the dance world. Then, by chance, I met Nureyev, and it was, well, I don't know, I was called in because Nureyev went into the studio and said, "This conductor, I don't want." Fired him on the spot. So they called in a conductor from the Paris Opera, who was actually my teacher at the Paris Conservatoire. There was a big fight in the rehearsal, Nureyev and the conductor. The conductor walked out and he said, "David!" And I had finished the rehearsal. So Nureyev said, "Call me on stage at the end." I'd met him in rehearsal previously because I was translating for a French string quartet who was playing, they were playing 4 Schumann pieces by Hans van Manen. And I was asked to translate between his terrible English and the French of the French quartet, because they couldn't understand him, obviously. And he called me on stage and said, "Look, I dance 8 performances, you conduct 8 performances." I had to say, "Well, I'm very sorry, I'm the assistant conductor, I can't accept this." He said, "I dance 8 performances, you conduct 8 performances." And that's it. That's how it all started.
So this comes to my next question somehow. Conducting a ballet involves a stage, and stage, obviously, there are stage directors. How do you get along with stage directors and choreographers? Who's the one opposing the other, or good cooperation?
I spend a lot of time in the dance studio with rehearsal, with the dancers, with the choreographers, with the ballet staff. And if there are any problems, then we work them out in the studio, not in the theatre with the orchestra. Everything is fixed. I come very prepared with everything, so that when we are in the theatre with the orchestra, we go.
Sure.
That's it. But it is very different because there are many aspects conducting for dance. You know, for example, if I conduct La Bohème, the music is there, the score is there. If we're doing a production, a new production of classical ballet, Giselle, Don Quixote, Swan Lake, sometimes the theatre has its difficulties, as we had in Rome recently with a new production of Don Quixote with Baryshnikov. Then we had a problem, which you'll see now, which has been chosen in the video. There was a problem changing the scenery because the Rome Opera is not a computerized opera. They can't just change the scene with a button, it goes underneath, because underneath the Rome Opera there are many famous Roman remains. So they haven't dug underneath. And so it has to be done by hand. And so we developed a piece of music which we arranged and which we performed for changing the scenery. So the conductor in dance is much wider, because as well as conducting the performances, you are also like the musical director. You have to take decisions. We have problems with this. We need more music. And so in order to create the end of a scene, to get the dancers off stage, because the theatre is not equipped to change scenery very quickly. So often I have to write music. I have to write some of the scenes, which we did, in fact, in a recent production at the Rome Opera. Yes, I had to write some music.
We'll talk about the new edition of Giselle in a moment as well.
Yes, yes. So that is the big difference between conducting for opera and conducting for dance. Conducting for dance, you have to know what is required. You have to know what the people say. Oh, you just follow the dancers. That's not true. That is a way the old Russian style. Old Russian conductors would tend to follow the dancers, which tends to make the orchestra not very dynamic. It's weak. The rhythm is weak. Whereas I go to the studio, I learn everything, find out what's required, I get to know the dancers, and then I conduct. And that makes the orchestra much more dynamic.
Magic word, the dancers. You mentioned Nureyev, but you've had them all. You had Sylvie Guillem, you had Carla Fracci, you had Bolle, obviously, and Marakova. I mean, it's how is it? The stars of yesterday are the stars of today? Is there any difference? What is the relationship?
Well, I think the great stars were 20, 30 years ago. We have less now.
Less. Okay.
Also because you find the famous dancers today, they will dance today in Milan, tomorrow in Berlin, the day after in Paris. They're not doing their classes, they're not doing their rehearsals, and they often have injuries. And that I find, and the careers tend to be shorter. The same with singers too. When you think that production of La Scala, it would then go to the Teatro Colón in Barcelona, and then Teatro Liceo in Barcelona, and then onto the Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. Well, the singers were resting on the boat, and they were rehearsing, and they were doing their exercises, and same for the dancers. So sometimes, if they take engagements, they find that the flights are late, they don't have time to do a proper class, they may have an injury, they're dancing on an injury which, without class, problems come.
And let's put together rehearsal and Carla Fracci. Tell us your relationship with Carla Fracci.
Well,
you knew her very well.
Yes, I knew her very well because I worked with her in Giselle, but also the BBC made a program called Ballerina, 4 programs, presented by Natalia Makarova, and she invited various famous ballerinas around the world to dance. She invited Carla Fracci, of course, who came to dance the last scene of Romeo and Juliet, in version by Franco. It was a very moving experience. We recorded it at Covent Garden, but the BBC, for financial reasons, decided to film with piano, and then I had to add the orchestra, the Royal Opera House Orchestra, afterwards to the video. Not easy. And so, we were working, and with piano, of course, filming with piano, and it was filmed then, it wasn't digital. They had to, they could retake something or do a scene, and afterwards put it together with the editing. She was quite amazing, and we were running late because there'd be problems, technical problems. So all the technicians were there waiting to go home, to take everything out into the trucks and away. And they were totally moved by her performance. She had this incredible presence and communication, and these guys, you know, she made them cry with the emotion in the performance. One of who came to me after and said, "Is this what ballet is like? Is this what happens?" Amazing.
These were
amazing.
burly big men
Of
drinking
course.
beer.
Well, yes, they smelled of beer. But they were totally moved by her presence. I later met her. I was conducting in Italy at the time with the ballet company Ater Balletto, with the orchestra Toscanini, and we won a prize in Positano, and we went down to collect the prize. Zeffirelli invited us for lunch, and he had his house just down the coast. And I went there, and Franco Zeffirelli took me to his room, to his main living room, lounge, and it was the set of La Traviata. Incredible. In his own house, he had La Traviata. Then came along this apparition in white, totally white, with only the eyes. And she came up, this came up to me and said, "Maestro, non mi dice buongiorno?" And of course it was Carla, because she was dancing Giselle and did not want to have any sun on her skin, to have the color. So she was dressed completely in white.
What a vision.
Incredible, incredible. Then I later worked with her at the Scala. Roland Petit did a ballet for her, Chérie on the novel by Colette. And then I worked with her at the Rome Opera when she was director on a production of Giselle. And it was, she worked so very well in the studio with the dancers, great care and we say knowledge and experience, was always very willing to transmit this to the student, to the young dancers.
And talking about Italy, you spent over 18 years at La Scala.
Yes, I was.
Under
yes.
the tenure of Riccardo Muti.
Yes, he was music director.
You obviously conducted the most important productions and took them over to international tours.
Yes. At La Scala I conducted, when Riccardo Muti was music director, he conducted 35 performances a year about, and I would conduct 33. Couldn't conduct more than him, of course. He was music director. So, and I also conducted all the tours abroad. Traditions, the conductor is always met by comparse, you know, who work in the theatre. They escort you, they bring you back. And there is this in uniform with its tradition. Yes, it's an old tradition.
Nice presence.
It was very interesting. When the Scala was being restored, we moved to the Teatro degli Arcimboldi, on the old site of the Pirelli tire factory, which was built by Pirelli, Tronchetti Provera, and he gave it as a gift to La Scala. So we worked there. And all these traditions disappeared. They vanished. Incredible. Then Riccardo Muti invited me. He conducted at the opening of the restored Scala, he conducted the opera which opened the Scala by Salieri, L'Europa Riconosciuta, and he offered me the gala. And I conducted the opening gala, and all the traditions came back. Incredible. incredible, just came back.
That's lovely.
Just
That's
by going back into the Scala.
That's very nice. And you mentioned all these theaters, but also in Italy you went everywhere. You went to San Carlo Napoli, il Teatro Massimo di Palermo, Teatro dell'Opera Roma, l'Arena di Verona. Is there any particular attachment to a theater? Any favorite theater? Anything that you can tell us apart from La Scala or the other theaters you've been there?
Oh, there's so many.
So many.
Because I came, before going to the Scala, I was at the Paris Opera. And it's just, my career was strange. I was conducting also for Roland Petit, new production in Marseille. The Paris Opera came and bought the production and took me with the production. And they kept me at the Paris Opera. La Scala came to the Paris Opera. They bought a production from the Paris Opera to go to La Scala, and they took me to La Scala. That's how it happened. In Italy, but there are so many wonderful theatres. I came a lot on tour with Roland Petit, with the Ballet de Marseille. We did new premieres in Palermo, San Carlo. So my introduction to the theatres in Italy started by being on tour with companies like Roland Petit. And I also came on tour with the Paris Opera. We came to Genova with the ballet school also of the Paris Opera. So these are my so many memories, many. Don Quixote. An approach came to do a new production of Don Quixote, inspired from the version that Baryshnikov did for American Ballet Theatre a long time ago. And the reason was they also brought it they tried in Covent Garden, but it didn't work very well because they brought in an arranger for the music, and apparently it was not very successful. I've heard bits, they play me bits in the archives that the Royal Opera has. So we started again. And time is obviously a problem, so we went back to the original manuscript from the Bolshoi. You can't get that now, but I'm also a conductor for the Tokyo Ballet in Tokyo. So they had the original manuscripts from the Bolshoi, and they obviously had them in the time when, during the Soviet Union, when there was great cooperation. And so we made an arrangement to the Rome Opera, because the Rome Opera was coming to perform in Tokyo with the management of the Tokyo Ballet.
So he's not only a conductor, he's a diplomat.
Well, you know, this is, so that's how I had to get the music, and then we made an arrangement. Some recordings I made with the Rome Opera Orchestra. They wanted to have for the Tokyo Ballet. So they made an arrangement, whatever it was. The management did all that. So we started with the original manuscript, and then working with the choreographer, obviously we had to make some changes, and that, as the conductor for ballet, is my job. So we wrote music, we adapted music, and we prepared the score, which was done in-house in the library, and fortunately I also modified the orchestration, because Minkus is a bit heavy, you know, boom, boom. So we lightened some of the orchestration, some of the brass, some of the percussion, to try and give more space to the music, more lightness, and more lift to the music, which helps the dancers because it pushes them in the air. It worked, it was a success, and because it went around the world, filmed by the RAI, wonderfully filmed by the RAI, and we did it obviously in the orchestra pit. They just had to live, no rehearsal, no possibility of going back, correcting. We filmed the general, we filmed the premiere, and we filmed the second, and that was it. And then if there was something that didn't work at the premiere, they did have a couple of performances to go back to, but that's all.
Many of you will remember from the Christmas Bazaar last year that we announced, nice to see you, we announced a special prize for a student at the Royal Ballet in London, and for us it was just a name, was Yasmin. Now we have here with us Yasmin, and we'd like to present her with a certificate from il Circolo.
Very nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you.
So thank you, Christopher, for being here as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yasmin. It was a pleasure to have you here. So, Alessandra and I saw you at the practice at school. You were amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Grazie mille. Grazie ancora. Vi voglio rivolgere un ringraziamento personale da parte mia e da parte del Circolo a Pia Russo. Pia Russo, prego, Pia. Pia Russo, una mia carissima amica, insegnante di danza presso il Tulsa School Ballet negli Stati Uniti e presso il San Carlo di Napoli, che oggi l'abbiamo sentito menzionare tantissime volte. Grazie Pia. David, ancora un grande applauso a tutti quanti. Grazie e complimenti alla bellissima e bravissima Jasmine. Grazie ancora a tutti.